Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, a state lawmaker calls for what? The impeachment of the Attorney General? What's all that about? Plus, what to do about will your electric bill rise as a winter sets in? All of that and more follows these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, just when you think things can't get, well, a little bit stranger in Harrisburg, in the state capital, well, this past week we had some interesting news when a state lawmaker called for the impeachment of the Attorney General. We have a big debate over small games of chance. We have movement, well, maybe movement on the now famous transportation bill that's been rolling around the legislature for, I don't know, 15 years maybe. Joining me to sort this all out is Karen Langley from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and Robert Swift with Times-Shamrock newspapers. All right, Karen, let's start with you. This was threatened before. Meaning this idea out of Western Pennsylvania-based lawmaker that he would offer an impeachment resolution to the Attorney General of the state, right? Mm-hmm. So far, so good. Well, what transpired last week in the state capitol that has, this newsworthy event that we're going to talk about?
So early in the week, there was a co-sponsorship memo, not even a bill or a resolution, right, but just a request for some fellow sponsors put out by Representative Darrell Metcalf, who's a Republican from Cranberry Township out west, right, saying that he wanted to file a resolution to impeach the Attorney General, Kathleen Kane, for, as he put it, her failure to live up to her responsibilities as Attorney General by defending the law of the land in the matter of the same-sex marriage case. And so this attracted a lot of attention. Representative Metcalf is somebody who is known for sometimes doing things that attract a lot of attention and conservative causes. Yeah. And so he put out this memo saying he wanted to impeach the Attorney General that got a lot of attention from other politicians. And then the following day, the Attorney General issued a lengthy response. Yeah. With some pretty harsh words for the representative.
Very great summary. Wow, I was sort of stunned that you got one lawmaker. And as you know, because you've been covering the legislature for years, which even Republicans have said, oh, that's just Darrell being Darrell. You remember on the record they would say that. We're not going to pay too much attention to it. But the Attorney General's response sort of stunned me.
She called him a bully.
Yeah.
And went on how she got 3 million votes and how he doesn't even know what the law is or the duties. And then the next day, the Senate Democratic leader Jay Costa got up on the Senate floor and sort of paraphrased some of the Attorney General Kane's remarks and called on his colleagues to repudiate Representative Metcalf. So that raises the issue somewhat, because there have been responses now, and so it becomes more of a thing, and that it puts pressure on, will anybody actually go on Metcalf's resolution?
Yeah. Do we have anyone, Karen, that has signed up yet to join that resolution?
When I spoke with Representative Metcalf about midweek.
So you actually spoke with him?
I did. We talked on the phone for a few minutes about this, and he said that there were a few lawmakers who had signed up to co-sponsor with him. He declined to say who they were. He said that once the thing was actually filed that we'd find out. He suggested also that some lawmakers might be afraid to put their names onto it for fear that they would be targeted by an investigation of the Attorney General. So he said that his list of co-sponsors won't necessarily reflect all of the support that he sees for this.
I mean, you're smiling. Go ahead.
Well, it's sort of funny that they would be targeted by the Attorney General because it's such a public thing, and the motive would be suspect if that happened. But in the past, it wasn't until the current governor, then Attorney General Tom Corbett, that the Attorney General would really ever investigate lawmakers.
Yeah, but Tom Corbett went what some would say went well beyond that. Not us, but in prosecuting some 25 lawmakers, ex-lawmakers, and staffers, right? So. But, I mean, if both, I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but I always do. I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Is anything going to come of this?
No, I don't think so. But no.
Would you agree?
I don't think anybody imagines that the Attorney General will be impeached.
Yeah.
But about midweek, a spokesperson for the Speaker of the House did say that the Speaker believes it's worth thinking about. That seemed to be definitely as far as anybody would go, and the spokesperson made clear that the Speaker was not calling for support for this. But I mean, for somebody to be, the House impeaches somebody.
Majority, and then you need two-thirds in the Senate. I mean, not likely to happen. Yeah, and you'd have to have a trial on it. I can't remember. You're the historian. Do you remember when that occurred? Oh, over Justice
Larson.
Rolf Larson.
Mid-'90s.
Yeah, mid-'90s. This was a justice who was prosecuted for illegal drug possession. There was prescription. Yeah. I didn't mean prescription drugs, and he was impeached. Right?
Yeah.
He was actually impeached and convicted.
Yes.
And convicted. All right. When we come back, I don't know if you're going to get the dice out. Small gains of chance. Robert Swift and Karen have both been all over this story. We'll talk about small games of chance. Are they coming to a tavern near you anytime soon? We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation, educating citizens and business leaders about important public policy issues and civic affairs. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're going to switch gears from the possible impeachment of the Attorney General, which the journalist here and your host agrees is not likely to happen, to a subject that has over the years has had a lot of debate, and that is whether to expand gaming, various forms of gambling into taverns and other kinds of places that serve alcohol and food. We currently have some of that going on in, Robert will pick up on this, and like Veterans of Foreign Wars, nonprofit operations. Robert, bring us up to date. By the way, this is controversial. I didn't even realize this was controversial.
This was on a little roll here this past week.
No pun intended, right?
Right. The Senate, without debate, passed this bill to legalize small games, raffles, punch boards for taverns.
Where are they now?
The taverns?
Where are the small games of chance now?
They're now in veterans clubs, fire companies, social groups, religious, nonprofit.
Got it.
Have them. This would open up to businesses that profit-making businesses. Look at one point.
Bars and taverns.
Yes.
Okay.
The House was going to do it the same day. Then all of a sudden the House gets it out of a committee, but then goes over. Then they go on a 3-week recess. This often happens. What's funny about this to me is that you started talking to these senators. Oh, this is part of our budget revenue assumptions made last June, that there will be revenue coming from licenses for small games. And I don't remember any discussion about this publicly.
Do you?
I don't.
I found that very peculiar. But there's a meeting of the minds. They want more revenue. Corbett wants some more revenue for lottery programs. And all of a sudden this thing is out there.
But now we've heard, I don't know, did you hear last week from the folks in these nonprofits and the VFWs and others who are concerned about that? Is there any?
Yeah, the statewide organization that represents those kind of groups said that it definitely has concerns about allowing for-profit businesses to do this. They're worried that it could detract from the not business, but the people that they have coming and playing these kinds of games.
They think, is that the point?
It would dilute the pool.
Revenue. Yeah, I mean, and we're talking about things that I'm not even familiar with, like punch boards, and it's not the dice. I mean, that's not happening. But who knows what'll happen? But it's not dice, right?
Yeah, I can't say I'm a frequenter of places that would have them either. So I don't. But it's always just there's so many. You've always said there's so many discretionary gambling dollars, and casino revenue's down, and so how much is out there. But then at the same time, the tavern owners feel that they've been hurt by these competitive pressures, that have, and they want to try to get some more parity.
So do you think that the reason it was postponed was the pressure from the nonprofits? Is there any evidence of that, or do you just think it was? Karen, I'll start with you.
It's not entirely clear to me why it was postponed. I know that in the hour or so before that decision appeared to be made, the Democrats in the House were saying that there were serious drafting flaws with the bill.
Translation, there could be some pressure that's being put on them. Is that right? You're smiling.
Also,
we don't. Go ahead.
Also, it might be worth noting that under the bill as it is now, that the state revenue portion of this, because the revenues would be taxable by the state at 60%, that would go into the general fund.
Right.
There had been some push in the Senate by Democrats to put that into the lottery fund instead, and the governor would also like to see the revenue going into the lottery fund. So there's some disagreement there. It's not entirely clear how that will get worked out.
So in other words, the money that would be derived, the taxes that would be derived from the gaming expansion would go part into the general fund and part into the lottery. That's what you're saying.
It's a disagreement over which fund it would go into. So right now, as the bill stands in the House, it would go into the general fund.
And that was your point earlier, right?
Anytime there's a new pot of money, the fight over how to spend it or where it's going to go is often as intense as the creation of the pot.
I hate to bring this subject up. I really do, because every time we think it's going to move, it doesn't. We had the transportation bill, Karen. We thought that it was moving in the House, maybe $2.2 billion. They might get rid of that $100 surcharge on the. If you get a moving traffic ticket, they could add $100. That's debated. Give us a quick up. Where does that stand?
Well, we had been told, again, that there might be some serious action this past week. We thought that perhaps there would be, or we were told that perhaps there would be a vote in the House. And then about midweek, the Speaker told us that wasn't going to be the case until mid-November. They did say that, this is supposed to be positive from their perspective of getting something done, and that people are still talking. The discussion now seems to be about prevailing wage and whether they're
I won't even ask you to explain prevailing wage, but go ahead.
You got two more pressure points this year. They're back at 2 weeks in November, then they recess for Thanksgiving. That's a potential point. And then after that, you're in for about 2 weeks in December. And then they're out, and then
election year next year.
People are starting to challenge, announcements.
But the governor has weighed in more heavily this week, right? Go ahead.
And just like what you were saying about election year, Governor Corbett, at the end of a bill signing midweek, told all the journalists, please report that the legislators need to get this done. If it doesn't happen this year, I don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, go ahead.
You got a piece of the bridge in Harrisburg that has fallen down, a concrete chunk.
Oh, and he's holding that up.
As a prop.
All right, great. A great and a fun update. It was fascinating subjects. All right, when we come back, Terry Fitzpatrick is here. We're going to find out what's going on with Marcellus Shale and whether that will, we're going to get lower natural gas prices. We're also going to take a look at energy bills, electric bills are up, down. What can you do about that? Our expert, Terry Fitzpatrick, will be on this program, and he'll help us out.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me, as often is the case, is Terry Fitzpatrick. He's with the president and CEO. He's the president and CEO of the Energy Association of PA. He was Pennsylvania Utilities Commissioner. When we want to talk about gas and natural gas and electric and all that stuff, Terry's the guy we always turn to. All right, I notice it's getting colder, you know.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, that brings us to our favorite topic, but it's an important one. Electric bills, gas bills. Give us some help. What's the latest update on what energy prices are likely to be, and what should not voters, you see what I do for a living? What our viewers should do, if anything, about those costs? Consumers.
Well,
yeah.
It's a good time to reevaluate where we are as we enter the winter heating season. I imagine a lot of people, as I did this week, finally turn on their furnace. And things you can do to conserve energy, some general points on that to keep in mind, but also maybe particularly for customers who maybe are having some difficulty paying their bills.
Right. Oh, good point. Great.
We want to send a message to them that please contact your utility company. There's an 800 number in your bill, and contact the company, because the companies are really set up with representatives who can help them in a number of ways, point them to assistance programs, perhaps to weatherization, any type of help they might need. That the utilities really are there to do that. So we encourage customers, if you're having trouble paying your bill, please don't ignore the problem. Call your company and get some assistance.
Okay. What do we expect for prices this year? I mean, energy prices at the consumer level, up, down, about the same as last year. Do you have any
Well, the market
indication
goes
yet?
up and down. I think natural gas prices are up slightly, but you know, the big thing I want to emphasize is, you know, often we hear the bad news. We hear when prices are going way up, but there's really tremendous good news for Pennsylvania. If you go back 5 years, take your natural gas bill. On average, natural gas bills in 2013 are 25% lower than they were in 2008, and that's without even adjusting it for inflation. And that is really tremendous good news for Pennsylvania. It's good news, frankly, across the board, because it has other effects. You know, it makes it easier, for example, for utilities to ask their customers to pay for needed improvements to infrastructure. So in addition to saving money for customers, it has all sorts of other good effects as well.
Yeah. Now, explain just briefly, across the geography of our state, is natural gas evenly divided, or is it more in regional places for our viewers? Give us a sense of the geography of it.
Well, roughly 50% of homes in Pennsylvania heat with natural gas.
Wow, that many. I would have never guessed
Yes, it's about half. Fuel oil is big, maybe 20-some%, electricity 20-some%, and then a variety of others. But if you looked at a map, what you find is natural gas service is really concentrated generally around where there's urban and suburban areas. And I think that makes sense, because it's easier to justify economically putting in that expensive distribution infrastructure, all the pipes, where customers tend to be clustered more closely together.
Now, I noticed that driving around the state, as I do, a lot of roads where they've dug up, is that electric or natural gas? I mean, and everybody notices. I mean, everybody's been talking about that. Primarily, what is that?
It could be a variety of things, Terry. We talk about infrastructure all the time. It could be water companies replacing the lines, wastewater. In many cases, it is natural gas, because that has been a big emphasis, to take out the old cast iron lines and put in more modern plastic pipes.
Something that definitely needs to be done. All right, I'm talking with Terry Fitzpatrick. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business, with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Well, we're back with Terry Fitzpatrick from the Energy Association of Pennsylvania. We're talking about all things utilities and natural gas. All right, Marcellus Shale, production up or down?
Well, the Marcellus Shale production is up, despite the lower prices. And that really, that's a big part. You know, we talked about the utility bills, the fact that your natural gas bill on average is 25% lower than it was 5 years ago. A large part of that is because of the Marcellus Shale, because it's just the basic laws of supply and demand, Terry. We have these new supplies of natural gas, and that's leading to lower prices and stable prices. And it also affects your electricity price, because natural gas is used increasingly to generate electricity. So it's also keeping your electric bill down.
Now, is the natural gas that's extracted from our state shipped out of the state? How, with a proportion, how much of it stays? Do you know how much it gets shipped out?
I don't know if that's tracked exactly, but I think the important part to me is we have a market for gas. What's produced here, whether it's consumed in Pennsylvania or not, it affects the price that everybody pays for natural gas because it goes into the market. You know, before the Marcellus Shale, we got most of our gas from the Gulf Coast, and it's just all part of a market. So the more supplies in the market, the lower the price, regardless of exactly where those molecules come from that we burn.
Yeah, the one we had talked about this over the years, and you know where it all goes is anybody's guess. But where are we going with using natural gas in automobiles? We talked about that, how you set up an infrastructure to deliver that, and you go into a gas station, what do? You have to retrofit engines. I'm not an expert on this, believe me. Any update on that, about where that stands? Are we any further with that?
Well, I think it's growing, but it really, right now, I think is more pragmatic for use in fleets, like corporate fleets, or in transit systems, for example, where you have a refueling station that you know you can get it refueled. It's difficult for the average motorist to think about doing this because you don't have the refueling infrastructure. But that could change. I'm reading there's talk more about technologies that would allow you to refuel your gas vehicle at home by putting some equipment on your home if you have natural gas service there, where you could refuel it at home. But that isn't really economically feasible now. But there's a lot of incentive for research and technological innovation here because of the difference in prices between gasoline and natural gas.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheaper, it's produced here, it's cleaner. We can get into, you know, there's always a debate about how clean and fracking and, you know, what goes on with it, in terms of air and water, potential pollution problems. We have that debate all the time. But it always seemed to me that natural gas is better than oil. It relieves us from, you know, having to buy. We buy a lot from Canada. We buy a lot from Mexico, Venezuela. Do I got that right?
Yes.
So doesn't that seem more logical to move in that direction as you get free from gasoline?
Well, particularly as we have these abundant shale supplies now that we're developing, yes, it makes absolute sense to be having this discussion about additional uses that we can find for that gas.
All right, thanks as always for coming on, giving us the update. Oh, all right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.